China's an amazing country and it's got incredible potential, but I can't sugarcoat it. In the early 2020s, China was behaving very badly, like objectively, morally, evilly in some important respects. Number one on that list, they're genocidally oppressing their ethnic minority group, the Uyghurs. They're keeping them in concentration camps. They're separating people from their family. They're killing some of these people. It's really bad. It's about as bad as human states can be without invading other human states. So that's the baseline for China in the early 2020s, but it doesn't mean it has to be that way forever. There are, broadly speaking, three main paths that China can chart through the 21st century and into the 22nd, and one of them is really exciting, one of them is pretty good, and one of them is very bad. So starting with the very bad, they could get more autocratic, more authoritarian, more dictatorial, more oppressive. That's the top-down control route. That leads to an AI-driven dystopia where they're watching and controlling everybody. Everyone's terrified all the time, and groupthink and communism are collapsing ideologies into a single, highly brittle pillar of ideology. Then, in the middle, there's that minus some of the worst excesses. There's a split the difference route with some top-down control and some Western liberalism. So some more freedom, some more democracy, some more open representation, a bit more of a free exchange of ideas and freedom of technological advance and capitalistic self-ownership. That would be a decent path. It's not perfect, but it's kind of where China was for the later half of the 20th century and into the 21st. They were trying to split the difference, use some of the West with some of the East, but unfortunately they've tilted into the authoritarian camp in the early 2020s and the late 2010s. They had a really great, productive beginning to the 21st century. Between roughly 2012 and 2014, for example, China poured more concrete than America poured between 1900 and 2000. They did 100 years worth of development in 2 years. No wonder their economy has been so burning hot. But they're heading into a tougher time now because they have a large older population, the replacement population rate is not great, and they're heavily dependent on their trade with other countries to continue surviving. So they import more of their food and their energy than they make themselves, for example. So the best possible route China could take into the future would be to democratize and increase freedom and devolve more control and authority to local sources and individuals. Secretly, this is the most robust way to move into the future. This is the best social and political system, even though it's messy a lot of the time. There's a kind of profound secret to the span of control between top-down authoritarianism and wild open democracy that basically goes like this. Top-down autocracy looks like it's got everything in hand. It looks very strong and stable because everyone's kept in line, but secretly it's very brittle because when everyone's kept in line, they don't contradict each other. They just toe the line. So if somebody sees a result on a scientific experiment that they don't think fits with the party line, they might fudge the numbers. They might poorly report the statistics about how their school is doing or how many people are born in their neighborhood. You see what I'm saying? This rot goes to the top and the bad information ends up leading to bad decisions and bad outcomes. And when things go wrong in a communist society, the impulse from the government is to exert more control over the economy, which sometimes leads to spiraling disasters. On the other hand, free economies and free democracies look really messy. From the outside, they're chaotic because the whole country can just change points of view radically in a single election. You can go from a president who really likes one thing to a president who hates that thing in basically a day, and all of a sudden the whole country has a different attitude. That seems chaotic. It seems unlikely to produce many results. And sometimes democracies are sclerotic. It's hard to engender comity. It's hard to work together and move forward. Sometimes the division that they create within the society can seem fractious. But underneath all that bubbling, there's much more stability in democracy because people are free to try ideas and get shut down. If something doesn't work, you'll find out because the marketplace rejects it or because the political impact is such that people throw out the person with the bad ideas. So it seems chaotic, but democracy is actually much more stable than autocracy in the long run. And that's why eventually China should move toward more of a democratic system because it'll make it more powerful. It'll unlock the potential of this amazing country to do wonderful things on Earth and beyond. But if they're stuck in the top-down control method, it's not going to work. Quickly, I'll just touch on Taiwan and we'll do a little bit more of this another time. A few things to know about Taiwan. It's the island to the east of China that's under such hot focus as a potential locus through which to see the evolution of China's points of view toward either more democracy or more autocracy. Taiwan was the home of the main opposition party that lost China's civil war in the 1940s. While the rest of the world was fighting World War II, China, which also participated, was also fighting a civil war. They were fighting it before World War II started, and they continued fighting it after World War II ended. And when the ROC, when the opposition party lost, the Republic of China moved to Taiwan. They'd actually been there for several years, but they officially took over Taiwan. They brutally oppressed its local people, and for 40 years, they basically enacted martial law. Since then, Taiwan has become a much more open and democratic society, which has led it to tremendous technological advances to the point where they are now responsible for 90% of the world's advanced semiconductor production and 60% of all the semiconductors in the world in the 2020s. So that's why Taiwan is so important. It's why China wants to exert control over it. It's why the West wants to defend it. And by the late 2020s, you're going to have a pretty good idea of which way the Chinese winds are blowing. Here's hoping for freedom, and here's hoping you can advance that cause somehow, in some way, in your social circles. Thank you for listening. Talk to you soon. Bye.